In this video, we're going to create a data validation list. And what data validation allows you to do is to protect your worksheet to some extent by limiting what can be entered into specific cells. So for example here, under Office, in both of these places, there are only 4 choices that you can enter. These are the all-around vision care main offices. So if this worksheet is going to be used by more than one person, there probably should be some kind of data validation on these particular cells. And one particular type of data validation that would work very well is a list. And what a list does is allow you to actually create a drop-down menu that you can choose the entry from. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm actually going to select the range A6 through A9 and give it a name. So I've selected the cells. I'll then click in the name box and I'm going to call this range Cities. Once I've entered the name in the name box, I just press enter. Then I'll go to the Data tab, and in the Data Tools group I'm going to click on Data Validation and choose Data Validation from the list. And the first thing I'm going to do is go to the Settings tab, and here's where you set your validation criteria. And there are a number of different criteria that you can choose from. I'm going to choose List. I'm going to make sure that these 2 checkboxes are checked. And then down here in the source, I can either choose cells from the worksheet to create the list, or I can type the list in. I'm going to use that named range I just created, so I'm going to press F3 to activate the Paste Name dialog box, and I'm going to find cities in the list and then click OK. So there I've got my source range defined. You can add an input message, and we're not going to in this particular instance, but what happens with the input message is when a user clicks on a cell that has a validation rule, they'll get a message about what kind of data is appropriate to enter there, or whatever sort of message you want to give the user. We are going to add an error alert. And first of all, I need to make sure that this checkbox is checked. Then there are several styles of alerts that you can enter. You can do a stop, which prevents the person from going any further. You can do a warning. The person can override the validation rule with a warning. Or you can just simply give information. We're going to create a warning, and in the warning we're going to give it the title City Name, and then we're going to enter the error message that we want to show. And then once we're done with that, we're finished with our data validation rule. So we're going to click OK. And you'll notice now that over here when I click on Boston, I get this drop-down arrow. And when I click the drop-down arrow, I can see the list of the cities. So I need that same rule down here in the range A13 through A16. So since I've already created it up here, I can copy it and then I can use the paste special command to copy that validation to those cells. So in the paste special dialog box, I'm going to click validation and then I'm going to click OK. And you can see that the list arrow has shown up here. So now I can select Boston. Let's see what happens if I try to enter a location other than the 4 that are in the list. So I'm going to type in Miami and press enter, and I get an error alert and the message shows up. Now because I just did a warning, I have the option of continuing, and I'm going to go ahead and click yes. So once you have the validation rule entered, you can have Excel call to your attention data that's been entered that is invalid data by going back to your Data tab to Data Validation and clicking on Circle Invalid Data. And so it circles anything that doesn't meet the criteria that you set on that cell. When you're done with that, you can clear the validation circles. So I'm going to go back to cell C14 and choose the appropriate city. And that's how you can use, one way that you can use data validation to make sure that accurate, valid data is entered into your workbook.